Let's go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Welcome back to Quad Chat Season 2, Episode 2 with NikoFilmz. So, first things first, how the hell do we say your last name?
Oh, boy. It's pronounced Anishchenko.
Oh, I was
But
close.
But if you're Russian, it's Anishenko. So it's a little bit different.
Anishenka? Anishenka?
Anishenko. Well, it's
I'm not going to be as good as that.
It's kind of it's like that. So I just like to say for English speakers, Anishchenko, because that's how it's spelled.
So are you Russian then?
Yes, I was actually born in Russia, and I moved to the U.S. when I was tiny, when I was about 2.
Wow.
My first language was Russian, and my parents just figured, hey, we'll just let him go to school and he'll pick up English there. So I guess you can judge my English now based on K-12 education.
I'm confused. Like, where does this guy live? Is he in the U.S.? Is he in where? So you live in where in the U.S. then?
So I'm based in Boulder, Colorado, but I like to travel around a lot. I have a nice little truck setup that I use to just go out anywhere west, and I love going on road trips. So sometimes people get confused. They're like, yo, are you based in Utah or California? Where are you, man? Okay, so basically, I've always loved flying, and I was like, what's the cheapest way to fly when I was in college? So I was like, the cheapest way to fly is to get a paraglider. So I saved up a bunch of money, got a paraglider, got into that, and then got into speed flying. And that was kind of my identity at that point. I was like really into the adrenaline sports, the thrill seeking, the speed flying. I got into skydiving afterwards, and I was just like, I really enjoyed it. But there was one thing that was missing from it, and it was just kind of the filmmaking aspect of it. So I've always been really into filmmaking. And if you look at some of my older videos, you'll notice that I always tried to include it, because whenever I'd be speed flying with my bros, I'd always like be right up behind them with my GoPro and my helmet and try to get some really cool shots of them. And when I got into that skiing accident, I couldn't paraglide or speed fly for quite some time. And whenever I don't do anything adrenaline seeking for, over a 2-week period, I start to get a little antsy. So I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I end up hitting up Carter, and I'm like, yo, dude, I know you do this whole FPV stuff. Why don't you build me a drone? Why don't you teach me? And of course he was like, yeah, whatever. Like every day, like somebody reaches out to me and like asks me about FPV, but they're not serious. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm serious. Like I'll pay whatever. Just build me a drone. I just want to try it while I'm injured and I'm like healing. I still want to be able to get some shots of my friends doing some cool stuff. For me, it's all about capturing the shot, right? It's not about the flippy floppy stuff. So it's going to be much more difficult to do the flippy floppy stuff with a cinematic rig like this, with the dead cat setup. And especially when I don't have a GoPro in it, this is very, very back heavy. Like the center of gravity is right here. This is ridiculous. So that makes it more challenging to fly freestyle. But when it's harder to fly like that when you're practicing, it becomes much easier when you're actually on a shoot, because you're like, oh, okay, this is like, I've been practicing this. This is a lot easier. So much fun in FPV and just cinematic aspect of it. I can talk about it for days. But the very first time I ever filmed base jumpers was actually July 4th of last year. Basically what happened was, this was when we were coming back from the trip to California, and we took the northern route. There's like 2 ways you can come back if you're doing a road trip. And I always wanted to check out the bridge in Idaho, the Perrine Bridge, where the base jumpers are jumping off of. So I figured, hey, let's just go over there. We didn't know anyone there at all. And we just showed up, and it just so happened that the very first person that I walked up to was Miles Dasher.
Wow.
Do you guys know who he is?
Not a clue.
If you're familiar with Red Bull base jumpers, like he's one of the most famous base jumpers like of all time. He has well over 5,000 base jumps. And I walk up to him, I'm like, dude, I've seen you in like so many Red Bull videos. Do you mind if I, get a drone shot of you? That'd be super sick. And the guy is the chillest dude. He's like down for whatever. And he's like, yeah, dude, let's go do it, man. It'll be sick.
Are you part 107?
I am.
That was on my list too.
Perfect.
fairly recently though.
Right? No, I think I actually have to renew mine next year.
You were investigated by the FAA.
Yes, I was.
After your house burnt down, nonetheless.
Yeah. So that was a pretty crazy time. Yeah, and then a week afterward, the FAA, we both get letters in the mail, except mine somehow ended up at my parents' house, so they freak out.
How did they find
so
your parents' address?
Like, Nikolai, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Let's read it. And so Carter also got that letter, which is weird because he was never at the event. Like, I wanted him to come out.
So someone snitched.
Well, people just assumed that, like, back then we did a lot of stuff together. I read that. I almost had like a panic attack. I was like, oh my God, like, we lost so much stuff in this fire. We don't know what's going to happen next. All our stuff, all our drone parts were all in the basement where the fire started. And they just got completely hosed by the by the firefighters. So we don't know how much parts we have that are still usable or not. A lot of them aren't usable because you can see like rust on them already. And now this could be upwards of $20,000 fine for flying over, people at that protest.
Right. For those who don't know, Niko flew at the George Floyd protest.
Maybe you should show that video.
Yeah, Jake, show the video if you can find it. It's on his YouTube, one of his initial videos, I think.
I actually don't think it's on YouTube. I think it's on Instagram, but it's also on AirViews.
It's on YouTube in your video where you're talking about the FAA. You show clips of it.
Oh, right.
So he was the red Cinedrone that everyone saw going around on Instagram and trending at the George Floyd protest, filming people.
Look familiar?
That one right there.
And people are like, oh my God, he's ruining the hobby. Let's report him. The fact that you're reporting that video is what ruins the hobby, not the video itself. Does that make sense?
Find the guy.
As soon as you report something, that's when the FAA has to, have some kind of action afterwards because it's their job. They're like, all right, somebody reported it. Now I have to look into it. Now I have to, put appropriate measures on it. So I just wanted to say that because I thought it was important.
So cool.
Oh, this one was such an amazing. And honestly, like your other one you did was cool with the runway, but because of the water aspect, I feel like you're risking so much more doing this one. And it's just so cool.
I'm not really risking that much. The pilot is though, because if he doesn't do it right, he's gonna flip over the plane. And that's a $400,000 plane that you're looking at, and it's brand new. He bought it. It's like this is
wow.
So
how choppy was the air behind that thing?
Oh, it was crazy. The Real Steady does a fantastic job cutting out all the turbulence, but there's two different places behind the plane that you got to watch out for. The first one is, of course, the prop wash, which is directly behind the tail. Mm-hmm. So whenever you fly into there, it's kind of, it's very, very bumpy, but also you get pushed back a little bit because the rotor's so bad. The other place is the wingtips. So if you get too close to the wings, they start to go out. There's some wake going out from behind it. And so with that, I've had situations where I flew a little bit too close up to it, and then my drone almost got caught in it and like spun out. But
oh my gosh,
flying in air mode, like right before it was able to spin out, it like stopped right here, and I was able to correct it, and I fell back. So that's how you
figured out why your cameras are mounted the way they are.
Why is that?
Framing.
There you go,
bro.
So, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, I think the most important aspects of flying cinematic FPV is not your flying, it's your framing. And that's a lot of stuff that's a lot of times what pilots miss. They think, oh, I can chase this guy. And they're on him the whole time. But their framing is off. The angle's too high. And so the whole shot is cut off halfway. Mm-hmm. I've seen that so many times. I've seen that with pilots who've been flying for years and who are getting like really good gigs. You want to make sure the framing is correct. In order to do that, you need to have just the right angle for just the right speed. You got to be able to predict what speed the person's going to go at and put the correct angle on.
How does that camera affect the flight? I mean, being off-centered like that? Because all my drones, I mean, they're all centered straight, narrow in the middle. Meanwhile, your camera is literally right next to your camera there. How does that affect your flights?
So with this camera, like the great thing about it, the whole reason why it's a little bit off-centered is that you get to adjust it on the fly really quickly. But I just pushed it forward at about 40 degrees or so.
Bro, that's brilliant.
That would let me fly fast enough backwards so that it would still look effective. Like it's not, it still look kind of cool. You can see that he's cruising. It was only
How did you not hit the ground 100,000 more times, or did you just not show all the fails?
Well, I showed all the times that I hit the ground, but I didn't show all the fails that I had. I just thought that it was more exciting for the ones that I actually hit the ground. But part of the reason why I was hitting the ground is that when you're flying backwards like this, your camera is up much higher than you normally would be if you're flying like this, right? So when I'm trying to frame the shot correctly, I'm trying to get as low as possible as I can. And you kind of forget that
there's the rest of a drone there, yeah.
Yeah, so there's like the rest of the drone, exactly.
Buddy, at the beginning of the show, y'all, if you have your significant other on the show, make sure that the wife leaves the room. Don't be jealous. Dude, you have a massive, like, you are fit. Like, I hate to say this. I mean, nothing weird about this, but wow, bro.
Thanks, dude. I mean, I still think I'm pretty skinny. Like, I want to improve a little bit. I just don't have I don't have a lot of time.
So, okay, wait. Can I ask how old you are? I wasn't going to ask on air, but now I'm going to ask. How old are you? Yeah, you're a fucking baby. You've got lots of time. Seriously.
Yeah. The way I see it, it's like, it's one of those things, like, I work from 9 to 5, and then from 5 to like 2 in the morning, I try to do FPV stuff. But I try to squeeze in at least an hour a day of just some kind of fitness activity just to keep myself like from going insane.
I know you
I'm
feel
old
like
and
you're
fat.
running
I
out of
cannot
time.
do this.
Yeah, I'll make him big while I say this. I know that you think you're running out of time, but when you hit like 28, 29, get back to me. Because the amount you age and mature in that period and actually realize how young you were at 23, it's obscene. Like, everything clicks as you get closer to 30, and you're like, wow, I really didn't know shit. So you've got tons of time. Tons of time.
That's good to know. But this is the last thing I expected to be shared.
Oh, yeah, no. If it's on Instagram, you're like...
Well, here's the cool thing, though. The cool thing is you're not just an FPV pilot. This is something you do, man. And you guys take pride in it. Cool, what is the best piece of advice that you could give any of the viewers in here for flying FPV or whatever it might be for you?
I think I've already said a lot of stuff about framing, so I probably shouldn't go into that. But I would say practice. And what I mean by that isn't just go out and fly and have fun. No. When you're really practicing, you're trying things that are difficult for you. So when you're flying and you know that you're bad at orbits, or you know that you're bad at one orbit, I can do counterclockwise, but clockwise, I suck at. Go out there and do that. That's what's going to make you good very fast. Because if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to progress. But once you start reaching out and trying new things that are challenging to you and you're scared, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my quad by doing this. Lose that quad, but you're going to gain that experience. So next quad, you're going to be able to pull it off.